I bring Casey Joyner in with that question there, Casey. Here we are, a team that's lost 5 games in a row that beat the Eagles in Week 2. It's their last win, but are they actually a better team today than they were back in Week 2?
In some ways, they might be. The run blocking looks better. If Dez is fully healthy, if he's capable of being Dez Bryant, which he wasn't last week, but some of that Sherman, but still, I don't know that Bryant looked quite 100%. If he's back to 100% and playing for a full game, you could make the argument they're better. But, I mean, you get the limitations of Castle, so there are there's still a lot of problems for Dallas.
All right, let's look at Philadelphia on this aspect first. Last time they played against the Cowboys, they were abysmal running the football. 13 carries, 2 yards for DeMarco Murray, which is almost unbelievable. They might not have Jason Peters this time around. Lane Johnson practiced at left tackle today. Dennis Kelly would move to right tackle. Hardy wasn't here. What will the Eagles' run game look like against Dallas, specifically without Peters?
The loss of Peters is big, but over the past 3 weeks, Philadelphia has a 5% marking my good blocking rate metric, which measures how effective an offensive line is at giving ball carriers good quality run blocking. The league average is 40%, so to get 50% over 3 weeks as a whole is really good. And the fact that they come out of the bye week, I just look at Denver last week, and they came out of the game, hadn't been doing very well, and suddenly, wow, they look great. And I just have a feeling that the getting out of the bye week is going to be a big help to keep the run game going, even with the personnel changes on both sides of that ball. I got a lot of faith that Philly runs the ball a lot better this time around than they did the last time.
Hopefully, because 2 yards is not very good. We know Matthews had a little bit better time against him last time. But what if Matthews, he did not practice today, out with the groin. What if he is limited or cannot go? How's that into the Eagles' run game?
You got to really be the bell cow, and mind you, Matthews has been the guy breaking up. But again, I don't think the Eagles look at Murray as their bell cow. I think they look at him as he's going to wear this down, and then we're going to bring the Lakers in to finish the defensive off. It's not like Murray can't handle 25 or 30 carries a game if you want him to. I think the Eagles would prefer him not to. So maybe you get some carries to Sproles, and try to see if you can spring him out and make him a good change of pace guy. But if Matthews can't go, you just say Murray. Okay, those big gainers that Matthews is getting after you wore the defense down. Let's go see if you can get them.
Casey, last time these two teams played, Sam Bradford was not very good. Obviously, he has not been great at all this season. But where can Bradford exploit Dallas? I mean, if he's going to go after somewhere or somebody, where's that guy?
I still think their Dallas secondary is terrible. I mean, I've got 3 of their defenders rated, 3 of their coverage defenders rated as green-rated players, which means they're matchups that you can target and go after. I think that they can. I want to say they can pick whoever. They can just say we can go after everybody. But frankly, when you've got that many targets out there, you should be able to hit some big passes because personnel-wise, there isn't really anybody in the Dallas secondary who will look at for the Eagles and say, well, that's a terrible mismatch for Philadelphia. So if I'm Philadelphia, if I get the run game, which I think they're going to be able to do, go ahead and let Bradford air it out some because he's been inaccurate, but he hasn't been making a lot of bad decisions, and Dallas hasn't been getting many turnovers anyway. So it's a lot of things to like about what you can do in the passing game for Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because Drew Pearson was on with us earlier, and he mentioned the lack of turnovers. They had their first couple turnovers this week, and it was really Hardy. It wasn't a secondary player who got the interception. So throwing the football. But I'll go back to Hardy. What about their pass rush against this Eagle offensive line?
Hardy looked, people hate him for his off-field issues and things, but last week on the field, he was stuffing the run. He was knocking out passes. He was an incredibly active defensive lineman. He's the one matchup to where if you're Philadelphia, it's like you better find a way to stop him because he can almost single-handedly ruin both your running game and your passing game. So Philadelphia just better say we got to put 2 guys on him on every single play, and find if we got to keep the tight end to chip him all the time. We do it. I mean, if I'm them, it's you have to stop Hardy because if he plays this week like he did last week, everything about Philadelphia's game plan could be hindered.
Casey Joyner, ESPN.com, joining us here as he does every week at the time at Casey Joyner TFS. And, Hardy is, to me, I agree with you. That's a big difference maker that they didn't have the first time around. They've been getting some other contributions from guys like Jack Crawford as well, who's got 3 sacks the last couple of weeks for them. Lee is a big-time terror on that side of the ball. Is this going to be a similar situation to last week, 13-12, one of those type of games between Dallas and Seattle that we saw last week?
The thing is, I don't think Seattle has the ability to be able to go vertical. As good as Russell Wilson is, he hasn't been a good vertical passer this year. And Philadelphia's shown on three different occasions that if you give them a good matchup in the secondary, they can and will be able to go vertical better than what you think their personnel would let them do. So I think Philadelphia is going to. I think Seattle probably came into that game saying, hey, we're going to try and do a smash-mouth game, and we're just going to beat Dallas at that type of game. I think it needs to just stay with the old idea of Chip Kelly pace football, because if you can get pace football going, I just don't think the Cowboys' offense is going to be able to keep up with that.
Yeah, and getting Des Bryant back for them didn't do much for them last week, but it didn't help Matt Castle. And I remember you saying, Whedon, worse decisions, but can throw the ball down the field. Castle a little safer with the ball, but doesn't throw the ball down the field. Didn't complete a pass over 10 yards last week. Should the Eagles be concerned with Des Bryant?
Yeah, they should be concerned with Des Bryant, but the thing you do is, again, you just, hey, fine, Terrence Williams can beat you deep too, but if I'm the Eagles, I say, look, I'm just going to put two guys on Bryant and say you're not going to him, and Castle, we find you might be able to go to Williams, but Castle, since 2009, you're the worst vertical passing quarterback in the NFL, the lowest yards per attempt of any quarterback over the course of that whole 6-year period. Nobody has worse numbers on vertical passes than Matt Castle. So if I'm the Eagles, I say, fine, I'm taking Bryant out of the lineup just by putting two guys on him, and then if you can beat me by going to Williams, great, but I don't think you can, and so it's just that's where I would not be too worried about what Castle could do if he's not throwing to Des.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you, what did Seattle do? Was it just Sherman being that good, or did they do something special to try to take him out, or was it Des Bryant just kind of not being, ready to go?
I think just a combination of all three factors. I think Sherman's a guy who he's more of a ball hawk than a shutdown corner. People think he's this great shutdown corner. He can be, but the bigger problem is if you throw passes his way, they're going to tend to be picked off more often. That's the bigger problem because he'll give up some big plays. But Sherman can hold big plays in check. I think the Seahawks said we're not going to let you throw them in the first place. I think that Castle's just a terrible vertical passer. Again, he only attempted 4 passes that travel more than 10 yards downfield. It's not even like he tried that many. He didn't complete any of them. So I think it's just a matter of all those different factors coming together. I think Philadelphia I don't think Dallas wants Castle throwing 8 to 10 passes vertically downfield if they're not going to Des Bryant. So again, you take him out of the game. I think you just take the Dallas vertical passing game out completely, and that could be a huge difference maker for Philadelphia.
It's amazing. Saw a stat today. Tom Brady throws the ball down the field 45% of 20 or more yards on the season. Meanwhile, Castle doesn't even do 10 yards in a game. That is unbelievable. The lack of effort or lack of attempts, I should say, down the field. I think it's the one reason why, and not to go too far off the boat here, but why Oakland with Carr has been successful. He's been willing to take shots down the field. It shows that in this day and age, with all the penalties and everything, you got to take those shots down the field. Otherwise, you're just in a situation where your offense can't score in the red zone.
Yeah, we've looked at, and that's why, some of the people, it's been a complaint about Bradford all years that, he's not that good throwing passes downfield, this, that, the other, overthrows and some bad decisions. But I think Kelly realizes that as much as he wants to lean on the run game first, that you better be able to throw vertical in this league, because if you can't throw vertical and the other team can, you will lose, an incredible amount of the time. Vertical passing is like the difference maker when it comes to passing production. And you're right about Carr. And the thing about Carr, too, by the way, he has a 0.8% bad decision rate. That's a metric I have that measures how often the quarterback makes a mental error that turns to a turnover opportunity. It's a really good number. So even though he's throwing vertical downfield, he's not making mistakes. Carr's a future star.
Casey, if you look at Philadelphia and wonder what's something that sticks out about them this week against this team, what do you like about them against Dallas?
I think they'll be able to do in the vertical game what they did against New Orleans. I think they'll be able to do what they did, a couple of different games this year where they've been able to hit big downfield passes. I want to see them. I think they're going to be able to, but I want to see them drop Bradford back and put up 15 vertical passes, something like that, and hit, and even a few stretch verticals. Those are the ones that are going 20 or further yards downfield, and really test that secondary. Because I really think if the Eagles could find a way to get out to, let's say, a 14-3 lead or something of that nature, game's over. Because I just don't think that Dallas has the offense to be able to come back from that. I think if Philadelphia can at any point get to a double-digit lead, the game's done because Dallas has just got to fold their tent.
I would agree with that. I think Philadelphia's defense, if this is going to be one of those games, because last time Dallas won the game, they blocked the punt, and that really turned that whole game around. And it wasn't because Romo and Dez wasn't there, but Romo wasn't lighting them all up. Drew Pearson was on with us earlier. Shereen Williams yesterday, they both said the same thing. They thought Dallas was really hurting from not having Murray. What do you think of the Dallas run game against Philadelphia?
McFadden looked really good 2 weeks ago. Dallas had its best good blocking rate of the season 2 weeks ago. And McFadden, who had looked, he was not displaying any kind of vision earlier this year. He would not see holes, or see the holes would be there and he wouldn't hit them. You just had to wonder if he either wasn't seeing them or just didn't want to hit the holes. 2 games ago, he did much better. He didn't do so well last week, but that was more Seattle's powerful run defense. They've given up, I think it's the fewest rushing yards to running backs in the NFL. So, I mean, that said more about Seattle than it did about Dallas. I think Dallas is going to be able to run the football better than they did last week. But Philadelphia's run defense has also been pretty solid a lot of times this year. So I'm not sure that you're going to see Dallas do what they did 2 weeks ago. I think it's going to be somewhere in between where they were 2 weeks ago and last week.
And they're going to get Kiko Alonso back, and he hasn't played much, but they're going to add him. Looks like Ryan's missed practice today, so he might not play. But an embarrassment of riches almost at the inside linebacker position. Kendricks, Hicks, when they get Ryan's back, and Alonso. How do you play all four?
I think when you're playing Dallas and you're playing against that offensive line, I think when you got to rotate, you got to do whatever you got to do because you have to keep fresh bodies out there against that Dallas offensive front. And I think a big thing for the Eagles as far as run defense goes also is that Dallas is going to try and they're going to try and wear you down. So you do keep those fresh players in there, but also you don't want them to hit the home runs. If they're going to go ahead and get the 5 and 6 yard gains, that's fine, and you can give up some of those, and it's fine if they do it. Just don't let them break the 20 or 30 yard run, because if you do that, eventually you're going to stop one of those running plays. You're going to force Castle to pass, and once you force Castle to pass, the whole Dallas game plan falls apart.
Well, Philadelphia under Chip Kelly has gone to Dallas twice and won, including last year on Thanksgiving. Conversely, Dallas has come to Philadelphia and beat them 3 times. Philly Sunday night heading down there, Casey. I'll get your pick on that game and what stands out.
Definitely Philadelphia. I just think they're going to be able to play pace football. I think they're going to be able to do. I think the way they've been run blocking, even with with the issue on the offensive line, the injury issue, I think they're still going to be able to run block very well coming out of the bye. Dallas can't throw the ball deep. Dallas can't stop the deep pass. I'm just looking at so many factors in Philadelphia's direction outside of it being a road game, and which you just mentioned, road game doesn't seem to bother them when it comes to Dallas the last couple of years. So I'm just looking at maybe 6 or 7 factors in Philadelphia winning this game. I won't say comfortably. Wouldn't surprise me though if it was 31-14 game out.
All right, interesting. The Eagles' offense maybe getting back on track for the first time. We haven't really seen them other than the New Orleans second half. They really, in the first half against the Jets, they did put up 24 points. But, man, they have struggled early in games here. Let's take a look at a couple other meaningful games this week. How about the Giants in Tampa? You know, this NFC East has been a mess. But if you want to win it, I would assume if you're the Giants, these are the kind of games you have to win. Even though Tampa's played better, you would have to think that these are the kind of games that, because Dallas, Philadelphia, and New York, all of them are going to have to face Tampa Bay and Miami coming up. These are the kind of games you got to win.
Yeah, you wonder about the Giants. Will they play down to their competition level? That's been kind of an issue for them for as long as Coughlin's been their head coach. But Tampa's got a terrible pass defense. They're like in the 30th in vertical yards per attempt allowed, something along those lines. I mean, they've got green-rated coverage defenders all over the place. They're also banged up and things. So, I mean, if the Giants can get their passing game going the way they did last week, I don't think that Jameis Winston can. He's not going to throw 7 touchdown passes, no matter what kind of the situation is. So, I think the Giants win that one, get up maybe a high-scoring game.
Hey, 3 would suffice potentially there. We'll see. I mean, he's played pretty good, and obviously that game in Tampa. So, the Eagles are the team that get the 2. They get the Dolphins and the Tampa Bay in Philly, whereas the Giants and the Cowboys both have to go to Tampa. I don't know if that means a whole heck of an extra, but you got to win those type of games. You can't slip up against teams that are most likely not in the playoff picture. What about Washington? We know they're playing the Patriots, but do you look at them as a factor in this NFC, or is this really the first? Because they did win that game. We saw Cousins, had that come from behind win. They had the bye, and now they play New England. But is this really the first step in them and kind of fading into the back end of the division?
I want to see how their run game looks. It's going to be tough to grade them this week because Miami played New England last week, and Miami led the league in good blocking rate coming into that contest, and New England just shut their run game down because they just wouldn't let the game flow, let Miami continue to run the football. I think Washington's, if they can get their run game going, again, not in this contest, because I think there's almost no way they win this game, but they can get their run game going, yeah, they can definitely be a factor because, Cousins makes bad decisions, but they're going to get Jackson back, so they're going to have a vertical passing attack, and their defense, as bad as it's been in many ways, it is playing better in a number of ways, so I think they'll be a spoiler. I don't think they win the division, and I don't think, obviously, they're not going to win a wild card, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Washington spoiling some people's parties down the road.
I agree with you. And you mentioned their run game. You wonder, they got the three backs there, Jones and Thompson and Morris, who's kind of seemed like he's been phased out. Which of those three guys becomes the guy that they lean on to be the guy who revitalizes their run game?
I think it's hot hand. I think they probably use Jones still in the passing game. I think that's what his role was coming into the year, and they were hoping he could do more, but it doesn't look like he's going to be able to get there. Thompson seems to be the hot hand right now, and I think they need to answer the question about Morris is, what's the issue with him? Is he banged up? Is he not what he was before? Because if he's not what he was before, make him third and lean on Jones and Thompson and see what they can give you, because, Morris has been a guy who's had a lot of carries the last few years, and if he's starting to hit the ball, time to phase him out.
Casey Joyner's with us, ESPN.com NFL Insider. We're looking at the NFL schedule, some interesting games. You got Peyton Manning going back to Indianapolis. Andrew Luck, has been a lot of talk about him struggling, that maybe he's not healthy. But I think that kind of shows you how important, do we just think Andrew Luck stinks all of a sudden? Or you mentioned your bad decision rates. I'm sure he's got a bunch of them. He's made a lot of bad decisions, thrown a lot of interceptions. But I think that goes to that they don't have a great offensive line, doesn't have a lot of weapons out. I mean, his weapons aren't great. They added a lot, but they haven't really stepped up and played very well for him. So when you look at Andrew Luck, what has been his issues this year?
He's always made bad decisions. It's funny, his bad decision rate at Stanford was solid but not great, and then he's always been a risk taker in the pros. He's always had higher bad decision rates than you think. Oh, this guy's a good game manager. No, he's a risk taker. He's a gunslinger. He'll force passes downfield. To see that isn't the issue. He's had some accuracy issues this year, and I mean, T.Y. Hilton last week, one reception for 15 yards. And he faced one of what I call a red-rated cornerback, which is a kind of a shutdown cornerback. And fine, Josh Norman's one red-rated cornerback. Denver has three red-rated cornerbacks. They have three guys that can shut people down. So I have a feeling that Luck's probably going to struggle again this week. But I think his thing is, you don't want to speculate, but he doesn't look like himself, and you do wonder if maybe it's an ailment that isn't going to keep him out of practice and isn't going to keep him out of a game, but is enough to slow him down. And if that's the case, then until he gets fully healthy, he's probably not going to be what he was. And this is not a matchup where you're not going to beat Denver if you're less than fully healthy.
I'm interested in your thoughts on this Green Bay Carolina. We saw Green Bay really struggle offensively last week. Carolina is very good on defense. Cam Newton, I'm not saying he's the MVP of the league, but they're not 7-0 without him. His numbers are kind of average, but man, he has made some major throws in some key time. That throw he made, Casey, to Olsen in overtime. I mean, Olsen's got the guy draped on him, and his arm could only go one spot, and the ball sticks to his arm right there. I mean, he has made some big-time throws, but he's made some bad throws as well. I don't know. I like Carolina. I've bought into them all year long. Some people are still iffy on them. What say you?
I'm buying into them. I think that Josh Norman is the type. He's one of those difference-maker cornerbacks where he can tilt the defense and say he's going to whoever he's covering, he's out of the line. You don't want to throw his way. He's both a ball hawk and a coverage guy. You're not going to complete passes against him. If you try and throw passes his way, he's going to pick passes off. Green Bay's had some passing game issues this year. They're not the same without Nelson. Cobb's been kind of banged up, and Jones has been good, but he's not really a difference maker. The running game for Green Bay, because Green Bay over the past few years, remember, Rodgers isn't the guy who's throwing 600 passes a year. He's throwing 500 and change, 525. They want to run the football, and what's happened with Lacey is really limiting that offense. So I'm looking at that situation going, Carolina can play tough defense, and they could definitely run the football. And if Green Bay can't run the football, I think Carolina wins that game and establishes themselves, another step in their powerhouse.
Interesting. We'll see. I mean, obviously, Carolina, a lot of people still doubting that team. I'm not doing it here. I've liked them all season long, and I'm interested to see them play in this game against the Packers. A couple other quickies. Obviously, you look at Oakland. We talked a little bit about them earlier. It's hard to buy into them sometimes. But if they beat Pittsburgh on the road, I guess it'll be time to start saying, hey, they got something here.
I'm saying it's the silver and black. It looks like Al Davis, a team that Al Davis would have built back in his day. They've got the power runner game. They can go vertical. They've got a really good quarterback. Their defense is playing a lot better. Thing is, though, Pittsburgh's defense, it was supposed to be their weak suit into the season, and they looked really good last week. Yeah, they lost, but they looked really good last week. And as Ben starts to shake off that rust, I think that offense is going to get back, and Pittsburgh's a team he can't fall asleep on. I think that Pittsburgh wins this game only in part because it's a cross-country battle on things, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than it would have been if these two teams played last year. So it says a lot for Oakland.
It's fitting that the Raiders are trying to prove themselves against the Steelers. I feel like it's 1978. That's this matchup here, right? We got Raiders and Steelers, and that should be good because the Steelers need this game too. I mean, they're 4-4. That AFC wildcard thing's a mess down there. So a lot of very meaningful games this weekend, and so many more great storylines. Casey Joyner, he'll be back on Monday as we recap the Eagles and the Cowboys. He likes the Eagles to win pretty handily in that game too. So we'll be back on Monday to recap all the action with Casey. And of course, you can follow him on Twitter at KCJoynerTFS for more on week number 8 in the NFL. Thanks, Casey.
Appreciate it, Mike.
All right, he's Casey Joyner, ESPN.com.